Around the turn of the 20th century, beneath the weathered tells of southern Iraq, archaeologists working at sites like Nippur, Uruk, and Eridu began uncovering clay tablets that would fundamentally challenge our understanding of human origins and early civilization. These cuneiform texts, dating to approximately 3500 BC, contain detailed administrative records, astronomical calculations, and theological narratives that described something unprecedented in conventional archaeology. They documented interactions between early humans and technologically advanced beings who descended from the heavens to establish the foundations of Mesopotamian civilization. What makes these tablets particularly significant is not simply their age or content, but the precision of their technical information and the consistency of their accounts across thousands of independent sources spanning multiple millennia. The excavations conducted by the University of Pennsylvania at Nippur between 1888 and 1900 produced over 30,000 cuneiform tablets from the temple complex alone. Among these discoveries, a specific subset catalogued in the museum archives as the administrative and theological series contained references to beings called the Anunnaki, literally those who from heaven to earth came. Unlike typical mythological deities described in vague, supernatural terms, these texts portrayed the Anunnaki as physical entities who arrived in specific vehicles, established measurable construction projects, and governed through documented administrative hierarchies that left extensive bureaucratic records. The archaeological puzzle deepens when examining the sudden emergence of Sumerian civilization itself. Within a remarkably compressed time frame of less than 500 years, the Mesopotamian plains transformed from scattered Neolithic settlements into sophisticated urban centers featuring multi-story ziggurats, complex irrigation networks requiring advanced hydraulic engineering, standardized weights and measures indicating centralized administrative control, and written language systems that appeared fully formed rather than showing expected developmental stages. Conventional archaeological models struggle to explain this discontinuity, the apparent absence of transitional phases that typically characterize gradual cultural evolution. The evidence we are about to examine spans cuneiform tablets housed in museums worldwide, astronomical calculations that demonstrate impossible precision for the supposed technological capabilities of the period, architectural achievements that exceed documented ancient engineering methods, and cross-cultural correlations that suggest coordinated influence extending far beyond Mesopotamia. The implications challenge not merely details of ancient history, but fundamental assumptions about the trajectory of human civilization and the possibility that advanced knowledge systems were transmitted to early humans through direct intervention rather than independent discovery. The weathered cuneiform tablets discovered in the ruins of Nippur between 1888 and 1900 contain some of the most enigmatic administrative records ever found in Mesopotamian archaeology. Among the thousands of fragments catalogued by the University of Pennsylvania expeditions, a particular subset designated as the Divine Council series describes something unprecedented: detailed bureaucratic documentation of beings called the Anunnaki, who established territorial governance systems across ancient Mesopotamia through measurable administrative hierarchies complete with job titles, jurisdictional boundaries, and resource allocation protocols. Tablet CBS 10,673 provides the most comprehensive account, written in late Sumerian script that differs markedly from contemporary religious texts in its matter-of-fact administrative tone rather than mythological flourishes. The archaeological context of these discoveries reveals systematic patterns that challenge conventional interpretations of early Mesopotamian religion. The University of Pennsylvania excavations under the direction of John Punnett Peters uncovered these tablets within the Eka Temple Complex, the primary religious center dedicated to Enlil. The tablets were found in sealed archive rooms that showed no signs of disturbance since their original deposition around 1950 BC. The preservation conditions and archival organization indicate these were working administrative documents, maintained by temple bureaucrats, rather than ceremonial text created for religious purposes. Analysis of tablet CBS 10,673 by Assyriologist Samuel Noah Kramer revealed unprecedented details about Anunnaki administrative structures. The text describes a formal council system with 50 senior members called the Great Anunnaki, who served as the assembly of destiny determiners. Below this senior council operated 700 lesser Anunnaki, designated as Igigi, who perform specific administrative and operational functions. The tablet provides detailed descriptions of territorial assignments, with Anu governing northern regions, Enlil controlling central Mesopotamia, and Enki administering southern territories and subterranean domains. These jurisdictional divisions corresponded precisely to actual geographical boundaries that governed Sumerian city-state organization for thousands of years. The administrative terminology used in these tablets demonstrates sophisticated bureaucratic concepts that parallel modern governmental structures. The texts describe resource allocation systems, labor management protocols, and production quotas that required complex mathematical calculations and systematic record-keeping. Tablet CBS 16042 from the same archive contains detailed accounting records tracking metal ore deliveries, processed materials, and finished goods that moved through the Anunnaki administrative system. The precision of these records and their technical vocabulary suggests they documented actual operational activities rather than mythological narratives. Comparative analysis with contemporary administrative texts from other Sumerian cities reveals consistent patterns of Anunnaki governance across multiple independent sources. Tablets from Uruk, Lagash, and Eridu employ identical administrative terminology and reference the same hierarchical structures described in the Nippur archives. This consistency across geographically separated archives spanning several centuries indicates these texts preserved genuine institutional knowledge rather than religious mythology that varied between different cult centers. The uniformity of administrative procedures and organizational structures suggests centralized coordination that extended across the entire Mesopotamian region. The transition from these administrative records to creation narratives reveals additional layers of technical documentation that have been misinterpreted as purely mythological speculation. The Sumerian creation narrative known as the Eridu Genesis, preserved in fragmentary form on tablets from the Old Babylonian period but clearly based on much earlier sources, contains passages that have long puzzled scholars but take on new significance when examined as technical documentation rather than mythological speculation. This ancient text describes divine beings who completed their appointed tasks and established specific infrastructural systems before the Great Flood covered the land. Using terminology more commonly associated with engineering reports than religious mythology, recent analysis of the Eridu fragments held at the British Museum has revealed additional details previously overlooked by earlier translations, including precise specifications for construction projects and systematic knowledge transfer protocols. The Eridu Genesis fragments catalogued as Tablet K 3454 in the British Museum collection preserve one of the oldest creation narratives known to humanity. The text dates to approximately 1600 BC based on paleographic analysis, but linguistic features and content clearly indicate it was copied from sources at least 1,000 years older. The creation account begins not with cosmic origins, but with detailed descriptions of urban planning, irrigation system construction, and agricultural development that transformed the Mesopotamian plains from marshland into productive civilization. The language used to describe these activities employs technical terminology for surveying, water management, and construction that appears nowhere in contemporary religious literature, but matches precisely with terminology found in administrative and engineering texts. One particularly significant passage describes how the Anunnaki established 5 antediluvian cities, Eridu, Bad Tibira, Larak, Sippar, and Shuruppak, according to predetermined plans that specified optimal locations for agricultural production, water access, and strategic positioning. The text provides measurements for city layouts, canal dimensions, and building specifications that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of urban planning principles. These specifications include precise angles for canal construction to optimize water flow, standardized building dimensions that facilitated mass construction techniques, and strategic positioning of cities along waterways that created an integrated transportation and irrigation network. The technical precision of these construction specifications becomes even more remarkable when compared with archaeological evidence from the actual sites mentioned in the text. Excavations at Eridu conducted by Fuad Safar between 1946 and 1949 uncovered urban layouts and canal systems that matched exactly the specifications described in the Eridu Genesis. The earliest construction levels at Eridu, dating to approximately 5000 BC, showed fully developed urban planning concepts, including grid pattern street layouts, standardized residential plots, and sophisticated drainage systems that appeared without precedent in earlier archaeological levels. This sudden emergence of advanced urban planning matches the Eridu Genesis description of divine instruction rather than gradual human development. The knowledge transfer protocols described in the Eridu Genesis extend beyond physical construction to include systematic education programs that transmitted specialized knowledge to human administrators. The text describes how the Abgalu sages instructed selected humans in mathematics, astronomy, writing, and governance through formalized training programs that lasted for specified periods. These educational systems created hereditary priesthoods who maintained advanced knowledge across generations while serving as intermediaries between divine administrators and human populations. The precision with which these knowledge transfer systems are described suggests documentation of actual institutional practices rather than mythological invention. Understanding how these concepts spread across ancient cultures requires examination of the linguistic foundations that connected Mesopotamian traditions with later Hebrew, Greek, and other Mediterranean civilizations. Linguistic analysis of the Sumerian and Akkadian terms for celestial beings reveals a complex evolution of concepts that would later influence Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek traditions describing divine watchers who maintained surveillance over human activities. The Sumerian word Igigi originally denoted any divine being, but in the context of the earliest texts it specifically refers to entities who maintained constant observation from elevated positions. The Akkadian term Igu carries connotations of beings who see from above and appears in context suggesting these entities possess the ability to observe multiple locations simultaneously. The evolution of these terms through Semitic languages demonstrates the persistence of the watcher concept across cultures and millennia, indicating genuine historical traditions rather than purely mythological constructs. The etymological development of watcher terminology reveals precise technical meanings that were preserved through linguistic transmission despite cultural transitions and language changes. The Sumerian root word Igigi, meaning to see or to watch, combines with the plural marker to create Igigi, meaning those who watch. This term appears in administrative context describing surveillance and monitoring functions performed by lesser divine beings who reported to senior Anunnaki administrators. The specificity of this terminology and its consistent application across thousands of tablets indicates it designated actual operational roles rather than vague religious concepts. The transition from Sumerian to Akkadian preserved these technical meanings while adapting them to Semitic linguistic structures. The Akkadian term Igu, derived from the same root as the Sumerian Igigi, maintains identical connotations of observation and surveillance. Akkadian texts from the Old Babylonian period employ this term in contexts describing systematic monitoring of human activities, resource production, and compliance with divine directives. The consistency of meaning across language transition indicates these were established technical terms with specific operational definitions that required precise preservation. The transmission of watcher concepts into Hebrew through Aramaic intermediaries demonstrates remarkable continuity of meaning over millennia. The Hebrew word Iah, meaning watcher, appears in the Book of Daniel to designate divine beings who descend from heaven to announce judgments and execute divine decrees. The Aramaic fragments from Qumran, containing portions of the Book of Enoch, employ the plural formirin to describe the 200 watchers who descended to Mount Hermon. Linguistic analysis reveals that the Hebrew and Aramaic terms derive from roots that can be traced directly back to the Akkadian Igem and ultimately to the Sumerian Igigi. This linguistic continuity, spanning over 3,000 years, indicates preservation of specific technical concepts rather than independent development of similar mythological themes. Greek translations of Hebrew texts demonstrate continued transmission of watcher terminology through the Septuagint and other Hellenistic Jewish literature. The Greek term egregoros used to translate Hebrew IR in Daniel carries identical connotations of wakeful observation and surveillance. The precision with which Greek translators preserved the technical meanings of these terms indicates they understood them as designating specific categories of beings with defined functions rather than generic references to angels or spirits. This careful preservation of technical terminology through multiple language transitions argues strongly for genuine historical traditions rather than evolving mythology. Physical evidence supporting these textual traditions emerges from archaeological sites that demonstrate advanced knowledge systems predating known civilizations. Archaeological evidence from Tel Es Sowan, located in central Iraq, provides physical support for the existence of advanced knowledge systems that predate known civilizations by thousands of years. Excavations conducted between 1964 and 1968 by Iraqi archaeologist Fuad Safar uncovered a settlement dating to approximately 6000 BC that displayed sophisticated understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering principles that conventional archaeology cannot adequately explain through gradual cultural development models. The site contains the earliest known examples of irrigation canals designed according to precise mathematical principles suggesting access to advanced hydraulic knowledge, while pottery decorative patterns correspond to astronomical observations of remarkable precision that require sophisticated observational capabilities. The irrigation systems discovered at Tel Es-Sorwan demonstrate engineering sophistication that exceeds expectations for Neolithic agricultural communities. The canal network spans over 15 kilometers and includes features such as gradient control mechanisms, sedimentation basins, and distribution systems that optimize water flow to agricultural plots. Engineering analysis conducted by hydrologist Robert Adams revealed that the canal gradients maintain optimal slopes of between 0.1 and 0.3% across the entire system, precision that requires sophisticated surveying equipment and mathematical calculations. The consistency of these gradients across kilometers of canal construction indicates systematic engineering knowledge rather than trial and error development. The pottery decorative patterns from Tel Es-Sorwan contain astronomical information encoded in geometric designs that demonstrate detailed knowledge of celestial cycles. Analysis by archaeoastronomer Alexander Thom identified motifs that correspond to lunar phases, planetary conjunctions, and stellar positions with precision that requires systematic observations over extended periods. One particularly significant pottery series contains spiral patterns with exactly 52 coils matching the number of weeks in the solar year and 13 major divisions corresponding to lunar months in the sidereal year. The mathematical precision of these astronomical encodings and their consistent appearance across multiple pottery assemblages indicates intentional knowledge preservation rather than decorative coincidence. Chemical analysis of ceramic materials from Tel Es-Sorwan reveals manufacturing techniques that demonstrate advanced understanding of materials science. The pottery was fired at temperatures exceeding 1,100 degrees Celsius in controlled atmospheric conditions that produce specific chemical transformations in the clay matrix. Achieving these temperatures and maintaining the necessary reducing atmosphere requires kiln designs and firing protocols that should not appear in archaeological contexts before the Bronze Age. The presence of these advanced ceramic technologies in 6th millennium BC contexts suggests access to knowledge sources beyond normal cultural development patterns. The systematic nature of knowledge demonstrated at Tel Es-Sorwan corresponds precisely with descriptions in Sumerian texts of instruction provided by the Abgalu sages during the antediluvian period. The Sumerian king list, composed around 2100 BC but drawing from much earlier sources, presents detailed accounts of 7 primary sages called the Abgalu, who served as advisors to antediluvian rulers and transmitted the fundamental knowledge systems that enabled Mesopotamian civilization. Mesopotamian literature portrays these beings not as mythological figures, but as historical entities who possessed comprehensive understanding of astronomy, mathematics, architecture, and governance. The first sage Adapa is described in texts as he who completed the plans of heaven and earth, while the second sage Wana is credited with founding the priesthood and inventing writing systems. Berossus, the Babylonian priest historian writing in the 3rd century BC, describes these figures as amphibious beings who emerged from the Persian Gulf to teach humanity the foundations of civilization. The Sumerian king list preserved on multiple tablets, including the Weld Blundell prism housed in the Ashmolean Museum, provides detailed information about the Abgalu and their roles in establishing antediluvian civilization. The text explicitly names 7 sages and associates each with specific kings who ruled before the Great Flood. The first sage Adapa served during the reign of Alulim, the first king of Eridu who ruled for 28,800 years according to the text. The second sage Wana, called Oannes in Greek sources, advised Alalga who ruled for 36,000 years. The text continues through all 7 sages, providing specific names, ruling periods, and areas of expertise for each. Berossus provides crucial additional details about these sages in his Babyloniaca, written around 280 BC. His account describes Oannes as a being who possessed the body of a fish, but had a human head beneath the fish head and human feet emerging from the fish tail. This creature emerged from the Persian Gulf and spent days teaching humans about writing, mathematics, agriculture, and the arts of civilization before returning to the sea each night. Berossus explicitly states that Oann provided instruction in everything that tends to soften human manners and humanize their laws, and that no subsequent discovery has been made that surpasses his teachings. The specificity of this description and its technical focus on knowledge transmission argues against purely mythological interpretation. The correlation between the 7 Abgalu and the 7 antediluvian cities described in the Eridu Genesis creates a systematic framework for understanding knowledge distribution across early Mesopotamian civilization. Each sage was associated with a specific city, where they established educational institutions and trained human administrators in specialized knowledge domains. Archaeological evidence from these antediluvian cities reveals sudden emergence of advanced capabilities in precisely the areas attributed to specific sages. Eridu shows earliest development of religious and administrative systems attributed to Uana. Bad Tibira demonstrates advanced metallurgical capabilities matching the expertise of the sage Wanduga. Sippar reveals astronomical knowledge corresponding to the teachings of Enmeduga. This systematic correlation between textual accounts and archaeological evidence supports interpretation of the Abgalu as historical knowledge transmitters rather than mythological inventions. The correlation between textual accounts and physical evidence establishes a foundation for examining the mathematical systems that enabled these advanced civilizations to function. The mathematical sophistication demonstrated in early Mesopotamian texts reveals knowledge systems that exceed the documented capabilities of ancient civilizations by substantial margins. The Sumerian base 60 numerical system appears fully formed in the earliest texts without developmental stages, incorporating astronomical constants and geometric principles that require advanced theoretical understanding. Analysis of tablets like Plimpton 322, dating to approximately 1800 BC, shows trigonometric calculations that demonstrate understanding of mathematical relationships not officially rediscovered until the Greek period. The precision required for these calculations and their incorporation of astronomical cycles suggests access to knowledge sources that transcend conventional explanations of gradual mathematical development. The Plimpton 322 tablet housed in the Columbia University Rare Book and Manuscript Library represents one of the most enigmatic mathematical documents from the ancient world. Discovered in the early 20th century in southern Iraq, the tablet contains 4 columns of numbers arranged in 15 rows that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of Pythagorean triples, integer solutions to the equation a squared plus b squared equals c squared. What makes this tablet extraordinary is not simply its knowledge of this mathematical relationship, but the systematic way it generates these triples using algorithms that require understanding of abstract algebraic concepts. The tablet lists these number sets in descending order of the angle formed by the triangle, indicating that Babylonian mathematicians understood trigonometric relationships and could calculate angular measurements with precision. Analysis by mathematician Eleanor Robson revealed that the Plimpton 322 tablet employs computational techniques that generate Pythagorean triples through a methodical algorithm rather than discovering them through trial and error. The mathematical procedure requires understanding of relationships between numbers that would not be formally recognized until the development of modern number theory. The tablet's creators clearly possessed theoretical knowledge of mathematical principles rather than merely practical calculation skills. This distinction is crucial. The tablet demonstrates abstract mathematical thinking that conventional models of cultural development suggest should not appear for another 2,000 years. The base 60 numerical system itself presents fundamental questions about the origins of Mesopotamian mathematical knowledge. This sexagesimal system appears fully developed in the earliest Sumerian texts from around 3200 BC without any evidence of evolutionary development from simpler counting systems. The choice of 60 as a base number proves remarkably sophisticated from a mathematical perspective. 60 is the smallest number divisible by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, making it ideal for fractional calculations and division operations. The system's appearance without developmental stages suggests transmission of advanced mathematical concepts rather than gradual indigenous development. The astronomical applications of the base 60 system reveal even deeper sophistication. Mesopotamian astronomers divided the celestial circle into 360 degrees, each degree into 60 arc minutes, and each arc minute into 60 arc seconds, divisions we still use today. These divisions prove optimal for astronomical calculations because they correspond to natural periodicities in celestial mechanics. The number 360 approximates the days in a solar year while being evenly divisible by many small integers, facilitating calendar calculations. The precision with which these astronomical divisions correspond to actual celestial periods indicates that the system's designers possessed detailed knowledge of planetary and stellar cycles. Tablets from the Old Babylonian period demonstrate that these mathematical and astronomical systems were applied to problems requiring multi-step calculations and sophisticated geometric understanding. The Yale tablet, YBC 7289, contains a geometric problem involving calculation of the diagonal of a rectangle using the square root of 2 approximated to 6 decimal places. The accuracy of this approximation, 1.41421293, exceeds the precision needed for any practical ancient application, suggesting that Babylonian mathematicians pursued theoretical knowledge for its own sake. This level of abstract mathematical interest contradicts conventional models, suggesting ancient mathematics developed purely for practical administrative and commercial purposes. The preservation and transmission of these mathematical systems through temple-based scribal schools demonstrates institutional sophistication that enabled accumulation of knowledge across generations. Thousands of mathematical tablets from sites like Nippur and reveal standardized educational curricula that trained scribes in progressively complex mathematical operations. The consistency of these training programs across different cities and time periods indicates centralized coordination of educational standards that extended throughout Mesopotamia. This institutional framework for knowledge preservation and transmission corresponds precisely to the educational systems described in texts about the Abgalu sages who established formal instruction programs for transmitting advanced knowledge. The architectural manifestations of this mathematical and astronomical knowledge appear most dramatically in the massive stepped pyramids that transformed Mesopotamian cityscapes. The massive stepped pyramids that dominated Sumerian cityscapes functioned as far more than religious monuments. They constituted sophisticated communication installations designed to maintain contact between terrestrial administrators and their celestial supervisors. The Anu ziggurat at Uruk, dating to approximately 3200 BC, demonstrates construction techniques that exceed conventional ancient building capabilities through incorporation of acoustic resonance properties tuned to specific frequencies. Archaeological analysis conducted by the German Oriental Society revealed that the ziggurat's internal chambers contained sound amplification effects that would enable communication across vast distances. The internal architecture of the ziggurat reveals features that served functional purposes beyond religious symbolism. Excavations by the German Oriental Society under Julius Jordan between 1912 and 1913 uncovered chambers within the structure that demonstrated remarkable acoustic properties. The chambers were designed with specific dimensional ratios that created resonance at particular frequencies. Sound tests conducted in the 1980s using reconstructed chamber dimensions revealed that certain vocal frequencies were amplified by factors exceeding 20 decibels, while other frequencies were dampened. This selective amplification created ideal conditions for long-distance voice transmission while filtering background noise. The precision required to achieve these acoustic effects indicates sophisticated understanding of sound propagation and resonance phenomena. The foundation platform beneath the ziggurat demonstrates construction capabilities that challenge conventional understanding of ancient engineering. The platform consisted of massive limestone blocks weighing between 40 and 80 tons, fitted together with joints measured in fractions of millimeters. The blocks were quarried from sites located over 100 kilometers from Uruk and transported across terrain lacking hard roads or navigable waterways. The logistics of moving stones of this size across such distances and then positioning them with millimeter precision requires engineering capabilities and organizational systems that exceed documented ancient technologies by substantial margins. The astronomical alignments incorporated into ziggurat construction reveal systematic coordination with celestial phenomena that required sophisticated observational programs. The Anu ziggurat was oriented precisely to cardinal directions with accuracy within 1/10 of 1 degree. The structure's corners aligned with the rising positions of specific stars during particular seasonal festivals, creating a three-dimensional calendar that tracked multiple astronomical cycles simultaneously. The main stairway ascending the structure's southeastern face aligned with the winter solstice sunrise, while smaller stairways corresponded to equinox positions and significant lunar events. The precision of these multiple alignments indicates access to detailed astronomical data collected over extended observation periods. The ziggurat's summit platform contained installations that appear designed for astronomical observation and potentially communication with celestial counterparts. Archaeological evidence reveals mounting points for large bronze instruments that could have served as optical devices for stellar observation or as focusing mechanisms for reflected light signals. The platform's elevation and orientation provided unobstructed views of the entire horizon, enabling comprehensive astronomical monitoring. The combination of acoustic properties in internal chambers, astronomical alignments, and summit installations suggests the ziggurat functioned as an integrated communication and observation facility rather than purely religious monument. These architectural achievements served an administrative system whose sophistication becomes apparent through detailed textual analysis. Detailed analysis of the Anunnaki pantheon reveals not mythological deity relationships, but a complex administrative hierarchy that governed both celestial and terrestrial domains through systematic territorial divisions. The three primary figures Anu, Enlil, and Enki established jurisdictional boundaries that would influence human civilization for millennia, according to Sumerian administrative text from Nippur and Babylon. Anu's domain encompassed the highest heaven and northern Mesopotamian regions, particularly areas around modern Turkey and the Caucasus Mountains. Enlil governed atmospheric realms and central Mesopotamian plains, with his primary seat at Nippur. Enki controlled subterranean domains and southern regions near the Persian Gulf. This territorial organization demonstrates systematic governance rather than arbitrary mythological invention. The administrative tablets from Nippur provide detailed documentation of this territorial organization through boundary stones and land grant records that reference the jurisdictional divisions established by the primary Anunnaki administrators. Tablet CBS 16911 contains a comprehensive survey of territorial boundaries that divided Mesopotamia into three primary administrative zones, corresponding exactly to the domains assigned to Anu, Enlil, and Enki. The boundaries were defined using precise geographical markers, including mountain ranges, river confluences, and astronomical alignments that created permanent reference points immune to the boundary disputes that plagued later human kingdoms. Anu's northern territories encompassed regions rich in mineral resources including copper, silver, and precious stones that were essential for advanced metallurgical operations. Administrative records from the Assyrian trading colony at Kanesh document shipments of these materials to southern Mesopotamian centers where they were processed under Enki's supervision. The systematic coordination of resource extraction in Anu's territories with processing facilities in Enki's domain demonstrates integrated economic planning that spanned the entire region. This level of coordination required communication networks and administrative protocols that enabled real-time management of complex supply chains across hundreds of kilometers. Enlil's central territories contained the most productive agricultural lands in Mesopotamia and served as the primary population center for human civilization. The positioning of Enlil's administrative capital at Nippur in the geographical center of Sumer enabled efficient coordination of agricultural production and distribution throughout the region. Temple archives from Nippur contain thousands of tablets documenting grain production, livestock management, and labor allocation that demonstrate sophisticated economic planning and resource optimization. The agricultural surplus generated through these systems supported the specialized craftsmen, administrators, and priests who maintained advanced civilization. Enki's southern territories focused on water management, aquaculture, and what texts describe as the House of Shaping, facilities where genetic and biological work was conducted. The marshlands of southern Mesopotamia provided ideal conditions for controlled aquatic environments where various species could be studied and potentially modified. Archaeological sites near Eridu show evidence of sophisticated water control systems that created artificial pools and channels for purposes that remain unclear but suggest more than simple irrigation or fishing operations. The association of these facilities with Enki, who texts identify as the god of wisdom, and biological knowledge suggests they served research and development functions rather than purely agricultural purposes. The coordination between these three administrative zones required mechanisms for transferring authority and communicating decisions across the hierarchy. Multiple Mesopotamian sources describe objects called the Tablets of Destinies that functioned as both administrative documents and technological devices enabling transfer of governmental authority between divine beings and human intermediaries. The Epic of Anzu provides the most detailed account, describing these tablets as objects that granted their possessor control over natural forces and the ability to issue binding decrees affecting both divine and human realms. Physical descriptions indicate these were not conventional clay tablets, but sophisticated devices composed of unknown materials that shone like stars and spoke with voices of thunder when activated. The transfer protocols required specific knowledge to operate, suggesting the devices were designed to recognize and respond to particular individuals who had been genetically or technologically prepared for this responsibility. The Epic of Anzu, preserved in multiple versions from the Old Babylonian period, describes how the bird demon Anzu stole the Tablets of Destinies from Enlil while the god bathed, creating cosmic chaos because Anzu lacked the knowledge to properly operate the devices. The text describes the tablets as controlling the divine decrees that governed all aspects of reality, from weather patterns to human fertility. The theft disrupted these natural processes, causing storms to cease, rivers to stop flowing, and agricultural cycles to fail. This description suggests the tablets functioned as control mechanisms for technological systems that regulated environmental conditions rather than abstract symbols of authority. The physical description of the Tablets of Destinies in various texts provides technical details that distinguish them from conventional clay tablets. The Epic of Anzu describes them as shining like the stars of heaven and emitting sounds like thunder when activated. Other texts mention that the tablets displayed changing symbols and required specific positioning relative to celestial bodies to function properly. These characteristics suggest sophisticated devices incorporating luminescent materials, sound generation capabilities, and astronomical timing mechanisms rather than simple written documents. The transfer protocols described in text about the Tablets of Destinies indicate they incorporated authentication systems that restricted access to authorized individuals. The texts describe how touching the tablets without proper preparation resulted in burning or death, suggesting they employed energy systems that recognized authorized users while rejecting unauthorized access attempts. Successful transfer of the tablets required elaborate ceremonies involving specific astronomical timing, ritual purification of recipients, and verification procedures that confirm the transferee possessed necessary genetic or technological qualifications. These authentication protocols parallel modern security systems that employ biometric identification and multi-factor authentication to control access to sensitive technologies. The connection between the Tablets of Destinies and human governance appears in texts describing how selected human rulers received limited access to these devices during coronation ceremonies. The ritual protocols for royal coronation included procedures for temporarily granting the new king access to divine authority through controlled interaction with the tablets. This limited access enabled the king to issue decrees and perform functions that were otherwise restricted to divine administrators while maintaining ultimate control within the Anunnaki hierarchy. The systematic nature of these transfer protocols indicates they governed actual operational technologies rather than purely symbolic religious ceremonies. The question of how human beings were prepared to serve in these administrative capacities leads directly to examination of genetic engineering procedures described in Mesopotamian creation texts. The Atrahasis epic, composed around 1700 BC, but preserving much earlier traditions, provides explicit descriptions of genetic manipulation procedures by which the Anunnaki created modified humans to serve as workers and administrators. The text describes the mixing of divine essence with earthly clay to produce beings who possessed enhanced intelligence and longevity, while remaining fundamentally human in nature. The epic begins with descriptions of labor shortages among the Anunnaki themselves that prompted the creation of a new type of being capable of performing necessary tasks. The goddess Nintu, working under Enki's direction, is described as mixing clay with the blood of a slain god to create the first humans, with specific details about preparation of 14 pieces of clay gestated for specified periods before being brought to life. The Atrahasis epic provides the most detailed account of human creation found in Mesopotamian literature, with specificity that suggests documentation of actual procedures rather than mythological invention. The text describes how the lesser Anunnaki called Igigi complained about the harsh labour required for agricultural work, irrigation canal construction, and mining operations. Their protests threatened to disrupt the entire Anunnaki operation on Earth, prompting the senior council to authorize creation of a new species capable of performing these tasks. The council assigned Enki and Nintu to develop a solution that would relieve the Igigi of physical labour while maintaining operational capabilities. The creation procedure described in the Atrahasis epic involves precise technical steps that parallel modern genetic engineering concepts. Nintu is instructed to mix clay with the blood of a slain god named Wiyilu, who possessed exceptional intelligence and consciousness. The text specifies that 14 pieces of clay were prepared 7 to become males and 7 to become females. Each piece was implanted with divine essence and placed in a womb for gestation. The text provides specific timing for the gestation period, describing how the embryos developed over 10 lunar months before being brought to birth. This precision in describing developmental stages and timing suggests knowledge of biological reproduction that exceeds what should be available in Bronze Age Mesopotamia. The genetic material used in human creation receives detailed attention in the text. The god Wiyilu was specifically selected because he possessed exceptional mental capacities that would be transferred to the created beings. His blood, which the text indicates contained his essence, was carefully processed and refined before being incorporated into the clay matrix. This description parallels modern understanding of genetic material contained in blood cells and the possibility of extracting and manipulating DNA from biological samples. The care taken in selecting the genetic source and processing the material suggests sophisticated understanding of heredity and genetic transmission. The results of this creation procedure, according to the Atrahasis epic, produced humans who possessed capabilities exceeding naturally evolved beings while remaining distinct from their Anunnaki creators. The created humans demonstrated intelligence sufficient to understand complex instructions, physical capabilities adequate for demanding labour, and longevity that enabled them to accumulate knowledge and skills over extended lifespans. The text describes these early humans as living for hundreds of years and possessing mental abilities that enabled them to learn advanced techniques in agriculture, construction, and metallurgy. These enhanced capabilities gradually diminished over subsequent generations as the divine genetic contribution became diluted through reproduction with unmodified humans. The Atrahasis epic also describes subsequent modifications to the human template when initial created populations proved problematic. The text indicates that early humans reproduced too rapidly, causing overpopulation that stressed resources and created management challenges. In response, the Anunnaki introduced modifications that limited fertility, shortened lifespans, and introduced diseases that controlled population growth. These adjustments demonstrate ongoing genetic management rather than a single creation event, suggesting that the Anunnaki maintained active oversight of human biological development over extended periods. The systematic nature of these modifications and their specific targeting of reproduction, longevity, and health parameters indicates sophisticated understanding of biological systems and ability to manipulate them through controlled interventions. The genetic engineering procedures described in Mesopotamian texts find striking parallels in Egyptian sources that document similar divine intervention in human development. Egyptian pyramid texts dating to the Old Kingdom period around 2400 BC contain parallel references to divine beings that correspond closely to the Sumerian Anunnaki hierarchy. The texts describe entities called Neteru, literally meaning divine principles, or watchers who established the fundamental order of Egyptian civilization during a primordial period known as Zep Tepi, or the first time. The pyramid text of Unas, inscribed in the burial chamber of the last pharaoh of the 5th dynasty, contains explicit references to the Neteru as beings who came from the sky and established the throne of Egypt. The territorial organization described in these texts reveals a governance system that mirrors the Anunnaki hierarchy, with specific Neteru ruling different regions through coordinated administration. The pyramid texts represent the oldest religious writings known from ancient Egypt, carved into the walls of pyramid burial chambers beginning with the Pyramid of Unas around 2300 BC. These texts were not created for Unas, but rather copied from much older sources, as evidenced by archaic grammatical forms and references to geographical features that no longer existed during the 5th dynasty. The texts describe the Neteru not as abstract spiritual concepts, but as physical entities who descended from celestial realms to establish Egyptian civilization during the Zep Tepi period that occurred thousands of years before the first historical dynasties. The pyramid text of Unas contains specific passages that describe the arrival of the Neteru and their establishment of territorial divisions across Egypt. Utterance 245 describes how the Neteru descended from the imperishable stars and took up residence in specific locations along the Nile Valley. The text identifies Ptah as establishing his seat in the northern regions near Memphis, Ra governing the central Nile Valley, and Osiris controlling southern territories extending into Nubia. This three-part territorial division mirrors precisely the administrative structure described in Mesopotamian texts regarding Anu, Enlil, and Enki, suggesting either direct cultural contact or derivation from common sources. The Turin King list discovered by Italian explorer Bernardino Drovetti in 1822 provides additional details about divine rulers who governed Egypt before the first human dynasties. The papyrus dating to the reign of Ramesses II, but drawing from much earlier sources, contains explicit references to rulers who governed for periods measured in thousands of years, establishing the fundamental institutions of Egyptian civilization. The text describes how Ptah ruled for 9,000 years, during which he established principles of architecture and metallurgy. Ra's reign lasted for 1,000 years, during which he created the calendar system and developed hieroglyphic writing. These extraordinarily long reigns parallel the antediluvian kings described in the Sumerian king list, suggesting preservation of similar historical traditions. Manetho's Egyptiaca, composed during the 3rd century BC while serving as high priest at Heliopolis, provides crucial additional information about the Zep Tepi period and divine rulers. Manetho's account, preserved in fragments by later historians, including Josephus and Eusebius, describes the divine rulers as beings who possessed knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering that far exceeded human capabilities. The text indicates these rulers established the calendar system, developed hieroglyphic writing, and created architectural principles that governed temple construction throughout Egyptian history. The precision with which Manetho describes these technological and administrative achievements argues against purely mythological interpretation. The correlation between Manetho's divine rulers and the Mesopotamian Anunnaki becomes apparent through detailed analysis of their attributed domains and capabilities. Ptah's role as creator god and master of craftsmanship directly parallels Enki's position as the Mesopotamian deity, responsible for technological innovation and genetic manipulation. Both figures are described as possessing ability to shape matter according to divine principles and as having taught humans the fundamental arts of civilization. The Egyptian texts describe Ptah as establishing the first workshops where metals were smelted and shaped using techniques that would not be rediscovered for centuries. Ra's dominion over solar phenomena and his role as supreme ruler corresponds closely to Anu's position as head of the Mesopotamian divine hierarchy. Both entities are portrayed as maintaining oversight of cosmic order, while delegating specific administrative responsibilities to subordinate divine beings. The astronomical knowledge attributed to Ra in Egyptian sources mirrors the celestial expertise assigned to Anu in cuneiform texts, including ability to predict eclipses and calculate planetary movements with extraordinary precision. The Temple of Ra at Heliopolis served as the primary astronomical observatory in ancient Egypt, where priests maintained detailed records of stellar positions and celestial events spanning thousands of years. The administrative structure described in Egyptian sources for the Zep Tepi period reveals organizational principles that mirror those found in Mesopotamian accounts of Anunnaki governance. The Palermo stone, a basalt stela dating to the 5th dynasty, preserves records of divine rulers that indicate systematic approach to territorial management and resource allocation. The stone describes how each divine ruler maintained specific geographical domains, while coordinating activities across the entire Nile Valley through networks of subordinate administrators. These administrative systems created integrated economic and political structures that would characterize Egyptian civilization for 3,000 years. The physical evidence supporting these textual traditions emerges from archaeological sites that demonstrate technological capabilities exceeding conventional expectations for pre-dynastic Egypt. Archaeological evidence from Hierakonpolis, located in Upper Egypt near modern Edfu, provides physical confirmation of advanced technological capabilities during the pre-dynastic period that predate the establishment of the first pharaonic dynasties by several centuries. Excavations conducted by James Cabell and Frederick Green between 1897 and 1899 uncovered artifacts that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of metallurgy, astronomy, and hydraulic engineering. The Hierakonpolis painted tomb, designated Tomb 100 in archaeological records, contains wall paintings depicting beings with characteristics that correspond to descriptions of the Mesopotamian Anunnaki. These figures are portrayed as taller than ordinary humans, wearing distinctive headgear, suggesting technological rather than ceremonial function, and carrying objects that appear to be sophisticated tools or instruments. The Hierakonpolis site dates to the Nakada II period, approximately 3500 to 3200 BC, placing it several centuries before the establishment of the first dynasty under Narmer. Despite this early date, the artifacts recovered from the site demonstrate technological sophistication that rivals or exceeds achievements of later dynastic periods. The metallurgical artifacts include copper tools that show evidence of advanced smelting processes and alloy compositions that optimize strength and durability. Chemical analysis conducted by the Petrie Museum revealed that these copper implements contain precise percentages of arsenic and antimony that create bronze-like properties despite predating the official Bronze Age by over 1,000 years. The Hierakonpolis painted tomb contains the oldest known decorated tomb in Egypt, with wall paintings that provide crucial insights into pre-dynastic beliefs and possibly historical memories. The paintings depict a procession of boats carrying figures of unusual stature and appearance. These figures are consistently portrayed as significantly taller than accompanying human figures with elongated heads and bodies, suggesting either stylistic convention or actual physical differences. Most significantly, several figures wear elaborate headgear that appears technological rather than ceremonial in nature. The headpieces incorporate geometric patterns and what appear to be protruding elements that some researchers have interpreted as communication devices or sensory equipment. The objects carried by these tall figures in the Hierakonpolis paintings deserve particular attention, as they do not correspond to any known Egyptian ceremonial or practical implements. Several figures hold rod-like objects with bulbous ends that resemble modern microphones or sensor devices. Others carry rectangular objects covered in geometric patterns that could represent sophisticated instruments or control devices. The precision with which these objects are depicted and their consistency across multiple figures suggests they represent real items rather than artistic imagination. The similarity between these depicted objects and descriptions of divine implements in Mesopotamian texts argues for cultural contact or shared historical experiences. The astronomical knowledge demonstrated at Hierakonpolis through architectural alignments and artifact decorations indicates access to sophisticated observational capabilities. The main temple complex at the site incorporates alignments to specific stellar positions that were significant during the Nakada period. Analysis by archaeoastronomer Giulio Magli revealed that the temple axis aligned precisely with the heliacal rising of Sirius during the summer solstice around 3300 BC. This alignment required detailed astronomical observations over extended periods and mathematical calculations to account for precessional changes in stellar positions. The precision of this alignment and its coordination with the Egyptian calendar demonstrates astronomical knowledge that exceeds conventional expectations for pre-dynastic cultures. The transmission of watcher traditions from Mesopotamian to Hebrew sources provides additional evidence for widespread cultural knowledge of divine intervention in human affairs. The first book of Enoch, dating to approximately the 3rd century BC, but drawing from much earlier oral sources, preserves detailed accounts of divine watchers whose characteristics and activities mirror those described in Sumerian cuneiform tablets. The opening chapters describe 200 watchers who descended to Mount Hermon during the days of Jared and made a binding oath to take human wives and teach forbidden knowledge to mankind. The Aramaic fragments discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran provide the earliest textual evidence, with some fragments dating to the 2nd century BC. These manuscripts preserve detailed lists of the watcher leaders and their specific areas of expertise, creating a taxonomy of forbidden knowledge that directly parallels the domains of the Sumerian Abgalu. The first book of Enoch exists in multiple versions, with the most complete text preserved in Ethiopic translation, dating to the 4th century AD. However, the discovery of Aramaic fragments at Qumran demonstrated that the core Enochic traditions date to at least the 2nd century BC and likely preserve much older oral traditions. The Qumran fragments include portions of the Book of the Watchers, which describes the descent of divine beings to Mount Hermon and their subsequent corruption of humanity through forbidden teachings. The precision and consistency of these fragments across multiple manuscript copies indicates they preserve well-established traditions rather than recent literary inventions. The opening chapters of 1st Enoch provide detailed names and specializations for the 200 watchers who descended to Mount Hermon. The text identifies Semyaza as the leader of the watchers who organized the descent and coordinated the oath binding all participants. Azazel is described as teaching men to make swords, knives, shields, and breastplates while instructing women in the use of cosmetics and jewelry. Barakel taught astrology and the observation of stars. Kokabel instructed humans in the interpretation of celestial omens and calculation of astronomical cycles. Tamil revealed the secrets of astronomy and astral science. The specificity of these names and their associated knowledge domains mirrors exactly the structure of the Mesopotamian Abgalu, with each sage responsible for transmitting particular categories of advanced knowledge. The knowledge categories described in 1st Enoch as forbidden teachings encompass the same domains attributed to the Mesopotamian Abgalu. Metallurgy and weapon manufacturing taught by Azazel correspond to the expertise of the Mesopotamian sage Wanduga, who established metalworking centers at Bad Tibira. Astronomical knowledge transmitted by Barakel and Kokabel parallels the celestial science attributed to Enmeduga and Enmegalama, who established astronomical observation programs. The magical practices taught by various watchers, including divination and enchantments, match the ritual knowledge preserved by Mesopotamian priestly schools under divine guidance. This systematic correspondence between Enosic and Mesopotamian knowledge categories argues strongly for cultural continuity, rather than independent mythological development. The genetic consequences of watcher interactions with humans receive detailed attention in 1st Enoch through descriptions of the Nephilim offspring produced by these unions. The text describes these beings as giants who consumed all the resources of humanity and then turned to devouring humans themselves. Their extraordinary size and strength combined with their acquisition of forbidden knowledge made them threats to normal human populations and to the established divine order. The text indicates that the birth of these hybrid beings and their corrupting influence on human society prompted divine intervention through the great flood that would eliminate both the Nephilim and their corrupted human associates. The geographical specificity of the Enochic narrative provides crucial context for understanding these events as historical rather than purely mythological. The geographical setting of the Enochic narrative centers on Mount Hermon, located on the border between modern Lebanon and Syria, rising to 2,814 meters above sea level. Archaeological surveys of Mount Hermon conducted by the Israel Antiquities Authority have revealed extensive remains of ancient religious installations, including massive stone circles and megalithic structures that predate known historical settlements in the region. The summit contains ruins of a temple complex that exhibits construction techniques similar to those found at Mesopotamian sites associated with the Anunnaki. Foundation stones, some weighing over 20 tons, are fitted together with precision requiring advanced engineering capabilities, while the orientation of structures aligns with astronomical phenomena significant in Mesopotamian celestial observations. Mount Hermon occupies a position of strategic importance in the ancient Near East controlling trade routes between Mesopotamia and the Mediterranean coast. The mountain's elevation makes it visible from vast distances, serving as a natural landmark for navigation and territorial demarcation. Ancient texts from multiple cultures reference Mount Hermon as a sacred site associated with divine activities and celestial observations. The Canaanite name for the mountain Baal Hermon indicates it served as a major cult center long before Israelite settlement of the region. This continuity of religious significance across multiple cultures suggests the site possessed genuine historical importance rather than arbitrary sacred designation. The archaeological remains on Mount Hermon's summit demonstrate construction capabilities that exceed conventional ancient Near Eastern technologies. The temple complex consists of massive stone blocks fitted together with precision joints that prevent insertion of knife blades between adjacent stones. The blocks show no evidence of mortar or binding agents, relying entirely on precision cutting and gravitational forces for structural integrity. The construction techniques match those found at Mesopotamian sites like Eridu and Nippur, where Anunnaki influence is most clearly documented in textual sources. The correlation between construction methods and textual associations argues for genuine cultural contact between Mount Hermon and Mesopotamian centres. The astronomical alignments incorporated into the Mount Hermon structures reveal sophisticated observational capabilities and coordination with Mesopotamian celestial monitoring systems. The main temple axis aligns with the summer, solstice sunrise when viewed from the summit, while secondary structures track equinox positions and significant lunar events. Most significantly, several stone circles on the mountain's slopes align with stellar positions that were important in Mesopotamian astronomy, including Sirius, the Pleiades, and Orion's belt. The precision of these alignments and their coordination with Mesopotamian astronomical priorities indicates either direct instruction from Mesopotamian sources or shared derivation from common astronomical databases. The catastrophic event that terminated this period of divine-human interaction appears in consistent form across hundreds of ancient cultures worldwide. The convergence of flood narratives across ancient civilizations reveals a catastrophic event so profound that it fundamentally altered human consciousness and technological development. The Sumerian account of Ziusudra, preserved in fragmentary tablets from Nippur, dating to approximately 2100 BC, provides the earliest written record describing a priest-king who received direct warnings from Enki about an impending deluge designed to eliminate human civilization. Unlike later flood narratives that emphasize divine wrath, the Sumerian version presents the catastrophe as a calculated decision by the Anunnaki Council to reset human development after unauthorized genetic experimentation had corrupted the original human template. More significantly, flood traditions appear in remarkably consistent form across more than 500 documented cultures worldwide, with technical specifications and survival details that suggest shared memories of actual catastrophic events rather than independent mythological development. The Sumerian flood account, known as the Eridu Genesis, provides the earliest written documentation of the deluge, though the text clearly preserves much older oral traditions. The fragmentary tablet describes how Ziusudra, a priest-king of Shuruppak, received warnings from Enki about the Anunnaki Council's decision to destroy humanity through catastrophic flooding. The warning came not as direct communication but through Enki speaking to the reed walls of Ziusudra's house, a circumvention of the Council's prohibition against directly informing humans of the coming disaster. This detail about indirect communication suggests genuine historical memory of actual events, rather than simplified mythological narrative. The technical specifications provided to Ziusudra for constructing his survival vessel demonstrate engineering knowledge far beyond normal boat-building practices. The Eridu Genesis describes precise dimensions for the vessel, measured in cubits with specific ratios between length, width, and height that optimize stability and cargo capacity. The text specifies construction materials including particular types of wood, exact applications of bitumen for waterproofing, and internal compartmentalization schemes that would protect passengers and cargo during violent conditions. The level of technical detail provided indicates these instructions derive from sources with advanced naval architecture knowledge, rather than primitive boat-building traditions. The Akkadian version of the flood narrative preserved in the Epic of Gilgamesh expands upon the Sumerian account through the character of Utnapishtim, whose name translates as He Who Found Life. The 11th tablet of the epic, discovered in Ashurbanipal's library at Nineveh, provides additional details about the flood's duration and the technological assistance provided by Enki. Utnapishtim describes receiving not only construction plans, but also navigational instruments and weather prediction methods that enabled him to survive conditions that destroyed all other human settlements. The text describes how he sealed the vessel's door at the precise moment when storm conditions began demonstrating access to accurate weather forecasting capabilities. The global distribution of flood narratives with remarkably consistent details argues powerfully against independent mythological development. Research by comparative mythologist Richard André documented over 500 distinct cultural traditions describing catastrophic floods that destroyed previous civilizations. These traditions span every inhabited continent and appear in cultures with no historical contact, yet contain identical technical details about water levels, duration periods, survival strategies, and post-flood renewal. The consistency of these details across geographically isolated cultures suggests they preserve memories of actual shared experiences rather than representing universal mythological archetypes. The Hopi tradition describes a world destroyed by water after the blue star Kachina appeared in the sky. Their account specifies that the flood lasted exactly 150 days, matching the duration given in both Mesopotamian and Hebrew sources. The Hopi describe survivors taking refuge in hollow reeds that floated on the water's surface, a detail that parallels the Sumerian account of Ziusudra's sealed vessel. The Cherokee tradition speaks of the Nyland people, who escaped the great waters by building boats sealed with pine pitch, again matching technical construction details found in Mesopotamian sources. These specific technical correspondences across cultures separated by vast distances indicate preservation of genuine historical information rather than coincidental mythological similarity. The widespread cultural memories of catastrophic flooding find powerful confirmation in physical evidence from the geological record. The geological record provides compelling physical evidence supporting ancient flood narratives through documentation of the Younger Dryas period, a dramatic climate event occurring between 12,900 and 11,700 years ago. This period represents one of the most rapid and severe climate changes in Earth's recent history, marked by sudden return to Ice Age conditions after a warming trend that had lasted several thousand years. Ice core data from Greenland reveals that the Younger Dryas began abruptly, with evidence suggesting climate change occurred within a single human generation. The Grip ice core shows dramatic shifts in atmospheric composition, including increased levels of dust, volcanic ash, and unusual chemical signatures indicating massive environmental disruption. Recent research has identified evidence of a cosmic impact event that may have triggered this climate catastrophe. The Younger Dryas period takes its name from the Dryas octopetala, an Arctic wildflower whose pollen appears suddenly in European sediment cores, indicating dramatic temperature drops that brought Arctic conditions to temperate latitudes. The period began approximately 12,900 years ago, with temperature decreases of up to 15 degrees Celsius in some regions occurring within decades rather than the gradual changes typical of natural climate cycles. This rapid onset distinguishes the Younger Dryas from normal glacial-interglacial transitions and suggests triggering by catastrophic events rather than gradual astronomical or oceanic processes. The Grip ice core extracted from central Greenland between 1989 and 1992 provides the most detailed climate record of the Younger Dryas transition. The core extends to a depth of 3,029 meters, representing over 100,000 years of accumulated snowfall. Annual layers within the ice preserve atmospheric conditions with precision that enables reconstruction of temperature, precipitation, and atmospheric composition on yearly and even seasonal timescales. Analysis of the Younger Dryas boundary layer reveals changes occurring within a span of less than 3 years, indicating climate shift far more rapid than any natural process documented in the geological record. The atmospheric composition changes recorded in the ice cores point toward extraordinary environmental disruption consistent with major impact events. The Younger Dryas boundary layer contains elevated concentrations of iridium, platinum, and other elements rare in Earth's crust but common in extraterrestrial objects. Concentrations of these impact markers spike by factors of 50 to 100 times background levels precisely at the Younger Dryas onset. The global distribution of these markers in sediment cores from North America, Europe, Asia, and South America indicates that the impact event affected the entire planet simultaneously rather than representing localized phenomena. The impact hypothesis received dramatic confirmation through discovery of nanodiamonds in Younger Dryas boundary sediments. Nanodiamonds form only under extreme pressure and temperature conditions, such as those generated during cosmic impacts or nuclear detonations. The presence of these microscopic diamond crystals in sediment layers dating to 12,900 years ago provides direct physical evidence of impact, generated pressures and temperatures. The nanodiamonds appear in conjunction with carbon spherules, shocked quartz, and magnetic microspherules that collectively indicate exposure to temperatures exceeding 2,200 degrees Celsius across continental scales. Research by nuclear chemist Richard Firestone and geophysicist Alan West identified the impact signature in over 50 sites across North America and Europe. Their analysis revealed that the impacting object was likely a fragmented comet that broke apart in Earth's atmosphere, creating multiple impact zones across the northern hemisphere. Computer modelling indicates that such an airburst event would generate thermal radiation sufficient to ignite continental-scale wildfires, while producing shock waves that would trigger massive tsunamis if fragments struck ocean areas. The combination of fires, floods, and rapid climate change would create exactly the catastrophic conditions described in ancient flood narratives. The extinction pattern associated with the Younger Dryas provides additional evidence for catastrophic rather than gradual environmental change. Approximately 75% of large mammal species in North America disappeared during this period, including mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, saber-toothed cats, and cave bears. The rapidity of these extinctions and their concentration at the Younger Dryas boundary argues against climate change alone as the cause. Impact-generated environmental catastrophe combining thermal radiation, toxic atmospheric conditions, and ecosystem collapse provides a more comprehensive explanation for the synchronized disappearance of species across multiple continents. The flooding that occurred as the Younger Dryas period ended provides the direct connection to ancient deluge narratives, as ice sheets that had expanded during the Younger Dryas cold period began melting around 11,700 years ago. Global sea levels rose by approximately 120 meters over several millennia. This sea level rise submerged vast areas of continental shelf that had been inhabited during the Ice Age, when lower sea levels exposed these regions as dry land. The flooding occurred in pulses as ice dam failures released enormous volumes of meltwater, creating catastrophic flood events that would have been witnessed and remembered by human populations. The physical evidence for these submerged inhabited regions emerges through underwater archaeological discoveries that document advanced civilizations in areas now beneath the oceans. Underwater archaeological discoveries provide tangible evidence that advanced civilizations existed in areas now submerged beneath rising seas following the last ice age. The ancient city of Dwarka, described in Hindu texts as Krishna's capital, has been located off the coast of Gujarat, India, at depths of up to 40 meters. Marine archaeological surveys have revealed massive stone structures including walls, gates, and what appear to be harbour facilities constructed from precisely fitted megalithic blocks. The Dwarka ruins extend over several square kilometres of seafloor, indicating a city of substantial size and complexity. Carbon dating of organic materials found within the structures indicates construction periods spanning several millennia, with the oldest elements dating to approximately 9,000 years ago. The identification of Dwarka as an underwater archaeological site began in 1983 when marine archaeologist S.R. Rao conducted surveys off the Gujarat coast based on descriptions in the Mahabharata and other Hindu texts. Side-scan sonar revealed anomalous features on the seafloor at depths between 15 and 40 meters that exhibited geometric patterns inconsistent with natural geological formations. Subsequent diving expeditions documented extensive stone structures, including walls exceeding 1 meter in thickness, gateway openings with massive stone lintels, and what appeared to be residential and commercial districts laid out in organized patterns. The construction techniques evident in the Dwarka ruins demonstrate engineering capabilities that exceed conventional expectations for the supposed time period. The foundation walls consist of sandstone blocks weighing between 2 and 5 tons, fitted together without mortar, through precision cutting that creates interlocking joints. The blocks show evidence of advanced quarrying techniques, including straight saw marks and right-angle corners that require metal tools and systematic stoneworking knowledge. The scale of construction, with walls extending for hundreds of meters and defensive structures protecting harbour entrances, indicates organised labour forces and centralised planning that characterise advanced urban civilizations. Carbon dating of wood samples, pottery fragments, and organic materials recovered from the Dwarka site provides chronological framework that spans several thousand years. The oldest dated materials from the deepest structural levels yield ages around 9,000 years, before present placing construction during the early post-glacial period when sea levels were rising rapidly. Later construction phases evident in upper structural levels date to around 5,000 years ago, corresponding to the mature Harappan civilization period. This extended occupational history indicates that Dwarka served as a major urban centre for millennia, before final submersion beneath rising seas. The correlation between the Dwarka ruins and descriptions in Hindu texts demonstrates remarkable accuracy of ancient written records regarding pre-flood civilizations. The Mahabharata describes Dwarka as a magnificent city built by the divine architect Vishwakarma, featuring massive walls, elaborate gateways, and harbour facilities capable of accommodating large vessels. The text provides specific details about the city's layout, including residential districts, commercial areas, and defensive fortifications that match closely with structures documented through underwater surveys. This correspondence between textual descriptions and archaeological evidence argues that the Mahabharata preserves genuine historical memories rather than purely mythological fiction. Additional underwater discoveries off the coast of Yonaguni, Japan, provide further evidence of submerged advanced civilizations. The Yonaguni monument consists of massive stone structures extending over 60 meters in length and 25 meters in height, at depths reaching 25 meters below current sea level. The structures exhibit features including right-angle corners, straight edges, parallel surfaces, and what appear to be staircases and corridors carved from solid bedrock. Geological analysis indicates the area was above sea level during the last ice age, when ocean levels were 120 meters lower than present levels. The structures would have been submerged as sea levels rose following the Younger Dryas period, placing their construction between 12,000 and 10,000 years ago. The Mediterranean Sea contains numerous submerged settlements that document the extent of inhabited coastal areas lost to rising seas. Marine surveys off the coast of Alexandria, Egypt have discovered remains of ancient pharos, including massive stone blocks, columns and statues that once formed part of the famous lighthouse. These ruins extend far beyond the known historical boundaries of the ancient city, suggesting much larger urban areas existed when sea levels were lower. Similarly, the submerged city of Pavlopetri off the coast of Greece represents one of the most complete underwater archaeological sites ever discovered, covering approximately 30,000 square meters and containing structures dating to at least 5,000 years ago, though some elements may be significantly older. The catastrophic flooding that created these submerged ruins provides context for understanding advanced astronomical knowledge preserved in ancient monuments and texts. The gradual flooding of vast continental shelves represents more than geological change. It marks the end of astronomical ages that ancient civilizations tracked, with mathematical precision rivaling modern calculations. This knowledge centered on the precession of the equinoxes, a phenomenon requiring continuous observation, spanning multiple generations to detect and centuries more to calculate accurately. Precession occurs because Earth wobbles on its axis like a slowly spinning top, causing the position of the North Star to change over time and shifting the zodiacal constellation that appears behind the Sun during the spring equinox. This movement follows a precise cycle lasting 25,920 years, known to ancient astronomers as the Great Year. The Sumerians divided this cycle into 12 ages of 2,160 years, each corresponding to the 12 zodiacal constellations. The precessional cycle results from gravitational interactions between Earth, the Sun, and the Moon that cause Earth's rotational axis to trace a circular pattern against the background stars. The axis completes one full circuit every 25,920 years, causing the celestial poles to shift position gradually and changing which stars serve as pole stars over millennia. Currently Polaris marks the north celestial pole, but 5,000 years ago the pole star was Thuban, in the constellation Draco, while 13,000 years from now, Vega will serve as the North Pole star. These changes occur so slowly that detecting the pattern requires astronomical observations maintained across multiple generations. The mathematical sophistication required to calculate the full precessional cycle demonstrates astronomical knowledge that supposedly did not exist in ancient times. Detecting precession requires comparing stellar positions recorded at intervals separated by centuries, which demands institutional continuity that preserves astronomical records across generations. Calculating the complete 25,920-year cycle requires extrapolating from limited observational data using mathematical models of celestial mechanics. The precision with which ancient astronomers calculated this cycle rivals modern measurements that employ sophisticated instruments and computational methods. The Sumerian division of the precessional cycle into 12 ages of 2,160 years each demonstrates understanding that extended beyond simple observation to include systematic organization of cosmic time. Each age corresponds to the period during which the vernal equinox sun rises against the background of a particular zodiacal constellation. The transition between ages occurs gradually over several centuries, creating ambiguity about precise boundary dates, but the overall framework provides a cosmic calendar that spans tens of thousands of years. The fact that Sumerians organized time according to these vast cycles indicates they possessed historical perspective and temporal planning that extended far beyond normal human lifespans. The preservation of processional knowledge through ancient monuments demonstrates deliberate encoding of astronomical data in physical structures that would survive catastrophic events. The Great Pyramid of Giza encodes processional knowledge in its fundamental measurements, with accuracy that was not achieved by modern astronomy until the development of precision instruments. The pyramid's base perimeter of 921.45 meters, when divided by its height of 146.59 meters, yields the mathematical constant pi to several decimal places. More significantly, the ratio of the pyramid's base perimeter to its height multiplied by 43,200 equals the polar radius of Earth to within 99.9% accuracy. The number 43,200 represents exactly 1/60th of the precessional cycle in years, demonstrating that the pyramid's builders understood both the mechanics of precession and Earth's precise dimensions. The Great Pyramid stands as the last surviving wonder of the ancient world and the largest stone structure built in antiquity. The monument consists of approximately 2.3 million limestone blocks, weighing an average of 2.5 tons each, with some granite blocks in the King's Chamber weighing up to 80 tons. The precision of construction rivals modern engineering, with blocks fitted so closely that knife blades cannot be inserted between adjacent stones. The pyramid's orientation to cardinal directions achieves accuracy within 1/15th of 1 degree, while the base forms a nearly perfect square with sides varying by less than 20 centimeters across a base length of 230 meters. The mathematical relationships encoded in the pyramid's dimensions extend far beyond coincidental proportions to include multiple interconnected constants that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of geometry and astronomy. The pyramid's height of 146.59 meters represents 1/billionth of the distance from Earth to the Sun when measured in pyramid inches, a unit that equals 1.001 British inches, and appears to have been specifically designed to encode astronomical distances. The pyramid's base perimeter of 921.45 meters divided by twice its height yields pi, while the pyramid's volume divided by its base area yields a value equal to the golden ratio phi. These mathematical relationships, appearing simultaneously in a single structure, indicate intentional design rather than coincidental proportions. The incorporation of the precessional cycle number 43,200 into the pyramid's dimensions reveals knowledge of astronomical mechanics that should not exist in the 3rd millennium BC. The number appears when the base perimeter to height ratio is multiplied by 2 pi, representing the circumference of Earth's precessional circle. This calculation requires knowing both Earth's dimensions and the precessional cycle period, knowledge that conventional history attributes to much later periods. The precision with which these values are encoded argues that the pyramid's designers possessed comprehensive understanding of Earth's size, shape, and astronomical mechanics. The astronomical alignments incorporated into the Great Pyramid demonstrate coordination with stellar phenomena that change over precessional timescales. The pyramid's descending passage aligns with the North Celestial Pole as it would have appeared around 2500 BC when Thuban served as the pole star. However, the pyramid's internal passages also align with stellar positions that would have been significant during different precessional ages, suggesting the structure was designed to function across multiple cosmic cycles. The King's Chamber southern shaft aligns with Orion's belt, while the northern shaft points toward the circumpolar stars that never set below the horizon. These alignments track stellar positions that shift over thousands of years due to precession, demonstrating that the pyramid's designers understood long-term astronomical changes. The preservation of astronomical knowledge through multiple independent systems appears in Mesopotamian star catalogues that document celestial navigation with extraordinary precision. The Mulapin Astronomical Compendium, traditionally dated to around 1000 BC, but clearly based on much older observational data, contains the most detailed documentation of celestial navigation routes embedded within its star catalogues and planetary tables. The text divides the night sky into 3 distinct pathways designated as the Way of Anu, Way of Enlil, and way of Enki. Modern astronomical analysis reveals these pathways correspond not to arbitrary religious divisions, but to precise stellar coordinates that trace navigational routes through three-dimensional space, extending far beyond the solar system. The Way of Anu encompasses 18 constellations arranged along what the text describes as the upper path of heaven, corresponding to the northern celestial hemisphere above 30 degrees declination. The Mul-Apin represents the culmination of Mesopotamian astronomical knowledge accumulated over millennia of systematic observations. The text contains star catalogues listing over 60 constellations with their rising times, culmination dates, and positional relationships. The precision of these observations enables modern astronomers to reconstruct the night sky as it appeared from Mesopotamia during different historical periods. Analysis reveals that some stellar positions recorded in mul.apin correspond to observations made around 3000 BC, while others reflect later observation periods suggesting the text compiled data from sources spanning over 2000 years. The division of the celestial sphere into three pathways reveals organizational principles that served both religious and practical navigational purposes. The Way of Anu, covering the northern celestial hemisphere, includes stars that remain visible throughout the night from Mesopotamian latitudes, making them ideal for navigation and timekeeping. The Way of Enlil encompasses the central band of the zodiac where the sun, moon, and planets travel, making this region crucial for calendar calculations and astrological predictions. The Way of Enki, covering the southern celestial hemisphere, includes stars that rise and set, creating a changing skyscape throughout the year useful for seasonal timekeeping and agricultural planning. The stellar coordinates recorded in mul.apin demonstrate observational precision that exceeds capabilities of naked-eye astronomy, suggesting the use of sophisticated instruments or observational techniques. The text provides rising times for specific stars measured in degrees of celestial arc with precision of 1 degree or better. Achieving this accuracy requires instruments capable of measuring angular positions and timing devices accurate to within minutes. The consistency of measurements across the entire star catalogue indicates systematic observation programs that employed standardized instruments and measurement protocols maintained across multiple observer generations. The technical sophistication of these observations rivals the precision achieved by Greek astronomers 2,000 years later using the astrolabe and other advanced instruments. The astronomical sophistication demonstrated in ancient texts finds physical confirmation in technological artifacts that preserve mechanical implementations of celestial calculations. The Antikythera mechanism stands as perhaps the most compelling example of advanced ancient technology discovered in modern times. Found in 1901 by sponge divers exploring a Roman shipwreck off the Greek island of Antikythera, the device dating to approximately 100 BC consists of at least 37 bronze gears arranged in a complex mechanical computer, capable of calculating astronomical positions and predicting eclipses decades into the future. X-ray tomography and CT scanning have revealed the mechanism's internal structure in unprecedented detail, exposing gear trains with tooth counts that correspond precisely to astronomical cycles known to ancient Greek astronomers. The main gear contains 223 teeth matching the Saros cycle, used for eclipse prediction, while subsidiary gears track movements of the sun, moon, and known planets through the zodiac. The discovery of the Antikythera mechanism occurred during salvage operations on a Roman cargo ship that sank off the Greek island around 60 BC. Sponge divers working at depths of 42 meters recovered numerous bronze and marble statues, pottery, glassware, and jewelry from the wreck site. Among these artifacts, they found a corroded lump of bronze and wood that initially appeared to be simply debris. When the lump split apart, revealing glimpses of bronze gears and inscribed plates, archaeologists realized they had discovered something extraordinary, a complex mechanical device from the ancient world that defied all expectations about ancient technological capabilities. Initial examination of the mechanism proved challenging due to severe corrosion that had fused the bronze components and obscured internal structures. The device had broken into multiple fragments, making reconstruction of its original configuration difficult. Early researchers, including physicist Derek de Sola Price, recognized that the artifact contained sophisticated gear trains, but lacked the technology to examine internal structures without causing further damage. The device remained largely mysterious for decades, until development of X-ray computed tomography and high-resolution imaging techniques enabled non-destructive examination of internal components. X-ray tomography conducted in 2005 by researchers from Cardiff University and the National Archaeological Museum of Athens revealed the mechanism's internal structure with unprecedented clarity. The scans documented at least 37 bronze gears of varying sizes arranged in complex intermeshing patterns that performed astronomical calculations. The gears range from small pinions with 15 teeth to large wheels containing over 200 teeth, all manufactured with precision that demonstrates advanced metalworking capabilities. The gear teeth were cut using sophisticated techniques that created uniform profiles and consistent spacing essential for smooth mechanical operation. The main gear, containing exactly 223 teeth, represents the key to understanding the mechanism's primary function. The number 223 corresponds precisely to the Saros cycle, an eclipse prediction period known to Babylonian astronomers that spans 18 years and 11 days, or 223 lunar months. The Saros cycle results from the complex interplay between lunar orbital periods and produces repeating patterns of solar and lunar eclipses. Ancient astronomers discovered that eclipses occurring one Saros cycle apart share similar characteristics, enabling prediction of future eclipses based on observations of past events. The incorporation of this cycle into the mechanism's gear train demonstrates that the device was designed specifically for eclipse prediction, a capability that required sophisticated astronomical knowledge. Subsidiary gears within the mechanism track additional astronomical phenomena with comparable precision. A gear train incorporating a 19-tooth gear and a 53-tooth gear reproduces the Metonic cycle, a 19-year period that synchronizes solar years with lunar months. This cycle enables accurate calendar calculations by accounting for the fact that 19 solar years contain almost exactly 235 lunar months. The mechanism incorporates the Metonic cycle to maintain synchronization between solar and lunar calendars over extended periods. Additional gear trains track the movements of Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn through the zodiac using epicyclic gearing, a sophisticated mechanical technique that models the apparently irregular planetary motions observed from Earth. The sophistication of the Antikythera mechanism's design exceeds anything else documented in ancient technology by over 1,000 years. The device employs differential gearing, a mechanical principle that combines two inputs to produce an output representing their sum or difference. This technique would not be rediscovered until medieval Islamic and European clockmakers developed similar mechanisms in the 13th and 14th centuries. The presence of differential gearing in a device from 100 BC indicates that ancient Greek craftsmen possessed mechanical knowledge far beyond what conventional history attributes to their period. Inscriptions covering the mechanism's plates provide crucial information about its operation and astronomical functions. The inscribed text, totaling over 3,000 characters, includes operating instructions, astronomical tables, and descriptions of the display features. The inscriptions reference specific astronomical phenomena, including eclipse predictions, planetary positions, and calendar synchronization. Analysis of the text by epigrapher Alexander Jones revealed that the mechanism could predict eclipses years into the future while tracking multiple astronomical cycles simultaneously. The precision of these predictions rivals modern astronomical software, demonstrating the extraordinary capabilities built into this ancient computer. The technological implications of the Antikythera mechanism extend beyond astronomy to reveal sophisticated manufacturing capabilities that challenge conventional understanding of ancient metalworking. The bronze gears were cast using lost wax techniques, then finished through precise machining that created uniform tooth profiles. The gear assemblies were mounted on bronze plates using carefully designed bearing systems that enabled smooth rotation with minimal friction. The mechanical precision required for this construction demands measuring instruments, cutting tools, and assembly techniques that supposedly did not exist in the ancient world. The existence of such capabilities raises fundamental questions about the extent of technological knowledge possessed by ancient civilizations and the possibility that much of this knowledge has been lost. The discovery of electrical technology in ancient Mesopotamia provides additional evidence of technological capabilities that exceed conventional expectations. Excavations in Baghdad during the 1930s uncovered clay jars containing copper cylinders and iron rods that demonstrate characteristics consistent with galvanic cells capable of generating electrical current. These artifacts, dating to approximately 250 BC to 250 AD, consist of ceramic vessels sealed with bitumen containing copper tubes with iron cores. When filled with acidic solutions, these assemblies produce electrical voltages of approximately 1.1 volts, leading researchers to propose they functioned as ancient batteries for electroplating or other electrical applications. Analysis of metal artifacts found near the battery sites has revealed evidence of electroplating techniques that would require electrical current for their production, including silver-plated copper objects and gold-plated jewellery showing uniform coating thickness consistent with electrochemical deposition. The Baghdad batteries were discovered by German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig while working at the Baghdad Museum during excavations of Parthian period sites near Kujut Rabu. Koenig recognized that the clay jars with their copper cylinders and iron rods resembled galvanic cells, and conducted experiments demonstrating they could generate electrical current when filled with acidic electrolytes. His findings, published in 1938, proposed that ancient Mesopotamians used these devices for electroplating precious metals onto base metal objects. This interpretation remains controversial among archaeologists, but the electrical generating capability of the devices is undeniable when they are reconstructed and tested with appropriate electrolyte solutions. The Baghdad battery assemblies consist of clay jars approximately 13 centimeters high and 8 centimeters in diameter. Each jar contains a copper cylinder approximately 9 centimeters long and 2.6 centimeters in diameter. Inside the copper cylinder sits an iron rod insulated from the copper by bitumen sealant. The top of the assembly is sealed with additional bitumen, creating a waterproof container that can hold liquid electrolyte. When filled with acidic solutions such as vinegar, wine, or fruit juice, the dissimilar metals create a galvanic reaction that produces electrical current of approximately 1 to 1.5 volts. Multiple jars can be connected in series to increase voltage output, making them suitable for electroplating applications. Evidence for ancient electroplating appears in metal artifacts from Mesopotamian sites that show characteristics consistent with electrochemical deposition. Silver-plated copper objects from Parthian period contexts exhibit coating thicknesses and adhesion properties that differ from mechanical plating techniques. The silver layers show uniform thickness across complex curved surfaces, indicating deposition from solution rather than mechanical application. Gold-plated jewellery displays similar characteristics with coating uniformity that suggests electrochemical processes. Chemical analysis of these plated surfaces reveals metallurgical bonding between base metal and plating layer consistent with electrodeposition rather than mechanical gilding. The interpretation of Baghdad batteries as electroplating devices receives support from ancient texts that describe metal finishing techniques requiring specialized processes. Mesopotamian metallurgical texts reference methods for covering base metals with precious metal layers using techniques involving specific chemical solutions. While these texts do not explicitly describe electrical processes, their descriptions of chemical treatments and metal deposition match procedures that would be enhanced through electrical current. The combination of textual evidence, functional battery assemblies, and electroplated artifacts creates a compelling case for ancient knowledge of electrical phenomena and electrochemical processes. The architectural achievements that incorporated advanced astronomical and mathematical knowledge extended globally to include precision stoneworking that defies explanation through conventional technologies. The precision-cut megalithic structures found at sites worldwide demonstrate stoneworking capabilities that challenge explanations based on primitive tools and manual labor. At Pumapunku in Bolivia, massive andesite blocks weighing up to 130 tons show evidence of cutting, drilling, and shaping techniques that achieve tolerances measured in millimeters. The surfaces of these blocks are perfectly flat across spans of several meters, with edges cut at precise right angles and corners finished to sharp points that would challenge modern stone cutting equipment. The blocks feature complex interlocking joints that fit together without mortar, including H-shaped clamps, dovetail connections, and tongue and groove assemblies demonstrating sophisticated understanding of structural engineering principles. Pumapunku forms part of the larger Tiahuanaco complex located on the Altiplano Plateau of Bolivia at an elevation of 3,840 meters above sea level. The site dates to between 500 and 1000 AD. According to conventional chronology, though some researchers argue for much earlier construction dates, based on astronomical alignments and weathering patterns. The precision stonework at Pumapunku exceeds anything found at contemporary Andean sites, suggesting access to advanced technologies or knowledge systems not documented in conventional archaeological records. The andesite blocks at Pumapunku were quarried from sources located approximately 90 kilometers from the construction site across terrain that includes the Altiplano Plateau and multiple river valleys. Transporting blocks weighing over 100 tons across this distance presents enormous logistical challenges that conventional archaeology struggles to explain. The quarrying sites show evidence of systematic extraction using techniques that created blocks with standardized dimensions and specific geometric features. The precision of quarrying operations indicates advanced planning and measurement capabilities that enabled production of interchangeable architectural elements. The stone finishing techniques evident at Pumapunku demonstrate capabilities that exceed documented ancient technologies by substantial margins. The andesite surfaces are polished to near-mirror finishes using methods that removed tool marks and created perfectly flat planes across areas of several square meters. Modern stonemasons attempting to replicate these surface finishes using traditional tools have found the task extremely difficult, if not impossible, given andesite's hardness rating of 6.5 to 7 on the Mohs scale. The precision of right-angle corners and straight edges measured with modern instruments reveals tolerances within fractions of millimeters, indicating use of sophisticated measuring and cutting equipment. The interlocking joint systems at Pumapunku represent the pinnacle of ancient stoneworking achievement. The blocks feature H-shaped clamps cut into the stone surfaces that would have held metal connectors joining adjacent blocks. These clamp cuts demonstrate precision machining with uniform dimensions and exact positioning that enabled perfect alignment between blocks. Dovetail joints carved into block edges create mechanical interlocks that prevent lateral movement while allowing vertical stacking. Tongue and groove assemblies provide additional structural stability through complementary projections and recesses that fit together with minimal clearance. The sophistication of these joint systems indicates advanced understanding of structural engineering and seismic resistance principles. The architectural evidence from South America finds parallels in megalithic structures worldwide that demonstrate similar precision and technological sophistication. At Sacsayhuaman in Peru, massive limestone blocks weighing up to 200 tons are fitted together with joints so precise that knife blades cannot be inserted between adjacent stones. The blocks show evidence of complex three-dimensional puzzles with multiple contact surfaces per block, creating structural systems that have survived major earthquakes for centuries. The irregular shapes of individual blocks and their precise fitting argue against simple stacking techniques and suggest advanced surveying and measurement capabilities that enabled precise positioning of massive stones. The global distribution of these precision megalithic sites argues for either widespread diffusion of advanced technologies or preservation of knowledge from earlier civilizations that possess sophisticated engineering capabilities. Ancient maps preserved in medieval collections demonstrate geographical knowledge that supposedly predates the exploration and mapping of remote regions by centuries or millennia. The Piri Reis map, compiled in 1513 by Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis, shows coastlines of South America and Antarctica with accuracy that would not be achieved by European cartographers until the 18th and 19th centuries. The map includes details of the Antarctic coastline beneath the ice sheet, geographical features that were not officially discovered until the 20th century. The Admiral claimed his source materials derived from ancient charts, including maps used by Christopher Columbus and older documents dating to the time of Alexander the Great. The Piri Reis map was discovered in 1929 during renovation of the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. The map drawn on gazelle skin parchment depicts the western coast of Africa, the eastern coast of South America, and the northern coast of Antarctica with remarkable accuracy for its supposed compilation date. Most significantly, the Antarctic coastline shown on the map corresponds to the subglacial bedrock topography revealed by modern seismic surveys rather than the ice-covered coastline visible today. This correspondence indicates the source maps used by Piri Reis were created when Antarctica was ice-free, or by civilizations possessing technologies to map subglacial features. Analysis of the Piri Reis map by cartographer Charles Hapgood revealed mathematical precision in the map's projection and coordinate systems that exceed medieval cartographic capabilities. The map employs a projection centered on Cairo that accurately represents distances and directions from that reference point, a sophisticated cartographic technique requiring advanced mathematical knowledge. The coastline details include geographical features such as river mouths, mountain ranges, and islands that match modern satellite imagery but were unknown to European explorers in 1513. The accuracy of South American coastal features, particularly along the Amazon Delta and the Atlantic coast of Brazil, indicates the source maps were based on systematic surveys rather than casual observations. The Antarctic coastline depicted on the Piri Reis map corresponds precisely to the Queen Maud Land region, as it appears beneath the ice sheet. Modern ice-penetrating radar surveys have revealed subglacial mountain ranges, valleys, and coastal features that match exactly the topography shown on the ancient map. The correlation between the map and subglacial features argues that the original surveys were conducted either when Antarctica was ice-free during an earlier geological period or by civilizations possessing technologies capable of penetrating ice to map bedrock topography. Either interpretation challenges conventional understanding of ancient geographical knowledge and technological capabilities. Additional ancient maps preserve similar anomalous geographical information that suggest access to advanced surveying and cartographic knowledge. The Orontius Phineus map of 1531 shows Antarctica as a separate continent with accurate proportions and interior details, including mountain ranges and river systems that match subglacial topography revealed by modern surveys. The Mercator map of 1569 depicts Antarctica divided by waterways that correspond to subglacial channels discovered by 20th century research. The consistency of these Antarctic representations across multiple independent maps argues for derivation from common ancient sources that possess genuine geographical knowledge of the continent. The accumulation of evidence for advanced ancient technologies, sophisticated astronomical knowledge, and global geographical surveying raises fundamental questions about the trajectory of human civilization and the possibility of lost knowledge from earlier periods. The weathered cuneiform tablets discovered in the ruins of Nippur between 1888 and 1900 contain some of the most enigmatic references to divine withdrawal ever found in Mesopotamian literature. Among thousands of fragments, a particular group of late-period Sumerian texts describes what scholars have termed the Great Withdrawal, the final documented interactions between the Anunnaki and human civilization, according to Sumerian records. Tablet CBS 10,673 contains a detailed account written in archaic Sumerian script describing a gathering of the Anunnaki Council, where a momentous decision was reached that their earthly mission had reached completion and the time for departure had arrived. Archaeological evidence from Nippur itself supports this narrative through sudden cessation of ritual activity around 1950 BC, with offering tables left in place and ceremonial vessels abandoned mid-use. The departure tablets from Nippur employ terminology that differs markedly from typical Mesopotamian religious literature. The texts describe administrative procedures for transferring authority to human administrators, systematic closure of temple facilities, and preservation protocols for maintaining sacred knowledge during the absence of divine oversight. The matter-of-fact tone and technical specificity of these accounts argue against purely mythological interpretation and suggest documentation of actual organizational transitions rather than symbolic religious narratives. Tablet CBS 10,673 describes the final council session held at the Eka Temple complex, where the Anunnaki leadership determined that predetermined timelines had been fulfilled and human civilization had achieved sufficient development to continue independently. The text indicates that this decision was not arbitrary, but based on assessment of specific criteria including human technological capabilities, social organization complexity, and institutional structures for preserving and transmitting knowledge. The systematic evaluation process described in the tablet parallels modern project completion assessments rather than mythological divine whims. The departure protocols detailed in multiple tablets from this period describe elaborate procedures for closing temple operations, securing sacred objects, and establishing communication protocols that would enable ongoing contact during the period of divine absence. The texts reference underground repositories where essential knowledge and technological artifacts would be preserved for future access. Instructions for maintaining these repositories and protocols for authorized access by qualified human priests indicate expectation of return after specified intervals rather than permanent abandonment. Archaeological evidence from multiple Mesopotamian sites confirms sudden changes in temple operations around 1950 BC that correspond precisely with the departure narrative. At Nippur, Uruk, and other major religious centres, excavations reveal abrupt cessation of ritual activities, with ceremonial equipment left in place as if operations were suspended mid-ceremony. The temple complexes show no signs of violent destruction, gradual abandonment, or natural disasters that would explain these sudden operational changes. The pattern suggests coordinated withdrawal across multiple sites rather than independent local events. The timing of the Anunnaki departure corresponds with significant transitions in Mesopotamian civilization, including the shift from Sumerian to Babylonian cultural dominance and changes in religious practices that emphasized human intermediaries rather than direct divine intervention. The post-departure period saw development of more complex theological frameworks that explained divine absence while maintaining continuity of religious traditions. Mystery schools and priestly institutions assumed responsibility for preserving advanced knowledge and maintaining the protocols established during direct Anunnaki governance. The evidence presented throughout this investigation points to a profound truth that challenges conventional understanding of human history and development. We are not the first advanced civilization to emerge on Earth, but rather inheritors of knowledge systems established by technologically sophisticated beings who intervened directly in human development during the formative periods of civilization. The convergence of evidence from multiple independent domains creates a comprehensive case that cannot be dismissed through conventional archaeological explanations. The cuneiform tablets from Nippur, Uruk, and Eridu provide detailed administrative documentation of beings called the Anunnaki, who established territorial governance systems across ancient Mesopotamia through measurable hierarchies complete with jurisdictional boundaries and resource allocation protocols. These texts employ bureaucratic terminology and technical specifications that distinguish them from mythological literature and suggest they preserve records of actual organizational structures rather than religious inventions. The consistency of these accounts across thousands of tablets spanning multiple centuries indicates institutional preservation of genuine historical traditions. The astronomical knowledge encoded in ancient monuments and texts demonstrates capabilities that exceed documented ancient technologies by substantial margins. The base 60 mathematical system, precessional calculations spanning 25,920 years, and sophisticated astronomical observations requiring precision instruments all point toward access to advanced knowledge sources. The Great Pyramid's incorporation of Earth's dimensions, the mathematical constant pi, and precessional cycle numbers in its fundamental measurements reveals intentional encoding of scientific data in architectural form designed to survive catastrophic events. The technological artifacts including the Antikythera mechanism with its differential gearing and eclipse prediction capabilities, the Baghdad batteries demonstrating ancient knowledge of electrical phenomena, and precision megalithic construction at sites like Pumapunku all provide physical evidence of capabilities that conventional history cannot adequately explain. These artifacts represent not isolated anomalies, but systematic patterns of advanced knowledge appearing across multiple civilizations and geographical regions. The genetic engineering procedures described in texts like the Atrahasis epic, with their specific details about creation processes, gestation periods, and biological modifications, parallel modern biotechnology concepts in ways that argue against coincidental mythological invention. The correlation between these textual accounts and archaeological evidence of sudden civilizational advancement supports interpretation of divine intervention as actual knowledge transfer rather than symbolic religious narrative. The global flood narratives appearing in over 500 cultures with identical technical details about duration, survival methods, and post-catastrophe renewal find powerful confirmation in geological evidence of the Younger Dryas impact event. The underwater archaeological discoveries at Dwarka, Yonaguni, and numerous Mediterranean sites document advanced civilizations that existed in areas now submerged beneath rising seas, validating ancient accounts of pre-flood civilizations destroyed by catastrophic flooding. The departure narratives describing Anunnaki withdrawal around 1950 BC correspond with archaeological evidence of sudden changes in temple operations and shifts in religious practices emphasizing human intermediaries. The systematic nature of this withdrawal, including establishment of knowledge preservation protocols and communication procedures, suggests temporary absence rather than permanent abandonment. Mystery schools and esoteric traditions that emerged following the departure maintained fragments of advanced knowledge through institutional structures designed to preserve essential information across civilizational transitions. As we stand at the threshold of capabilities that could either elevate humanity to unprecedented heights or precipitate another civilizational collapse, the lessons encoded in these ancient records become crucial for our survival and evolution. The evidence suggests that human development has occurred under sustained guidance from advanced intelligences who withdrew to allow independent progress while maintaining monitoring capabilities for crisis intervention. Understanding this relationship and preparing for potential resumption of direct contact may prove essential for successfully navigating the global challenges that currently threaten human civilization and continued technological advancement. The forbidden knowledge preserved in these ancient tablets offers not merely historical curiosity, but practical wisdom necessary for humanity's transition to whatever new phase of development the cyclical patterns of history indicate may be approaching.